It's finally Friday.
It's Friday, Friday.
Thank God it's
Welcome to our Breeders' Cup edition of the Friday Show, presented by Cal Racing Cares. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Ray Paulick. Coming up, we'll be talking about the big races, the Classic and the Distaff, but we're going to start with the Juvenile. Ray, every year there's a lot of attention paid to the Juvenile because you might be getting a glimpse of next year's Kentucky Derby winner, or at least some of the contenders for next year's Triple Crown races. This year, there is a ton of spotlight on one horse, and his name is Bolt D'Oro. What do you make of it?
Well, he deserves to be a heavy favorite. He will be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But I try not to get too excited about two-year-olds this time of the year as far as projecting into the spring and the three-year-old classics. I think a lot of times you see two-year-olds grow up faster than their, the other two-year-olds. Just like in school, some classmates grew up quicker than the others. And I think maybe by the next spring, this class will catch up to him. But he will be favored, and he's a good two-year-old.
And he looks like he should be the favorite. He is kind of towering over his competition physically at the moment. I asked trainer Mick Ruiz, though, about all the attention, whether there's some mounting pressure for him.
You know, I have 7 children, 6 grandchildren already, 500 employees. This is a tough job, but it's nothing compared to the real life stuff. He's going to do what he wants to do. You know, he's a really good horse. I mean, we have really high hopes for him. We think he'll run his best race here to date, but it's just up to the racing gods and see how he feels that day.
Well, I'm not crazy about the post position Bolt D'Oro drew for the Juvenile. He may be a play against as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it is the 11 post. There is a short run into the turn, so that is a concern. But Mick Ruiz said he's not really worried about it because of Bolt D'Oro's tactical speed, which he believes he has more of than he's shown in previous races. The European contingent, there's a pretty good one that's come over for this Breeders' Cup. You might assume that the Euros would prefer to be on the East Coast for travel reasons, for one thing, but also because the turf tends to be softer. Here it's fairly hard, it's firm usually. However, the Europeans have done quite well in Breeders' Cups at Santa Anita. However, this isn't a Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita, it's at Del Mar.
That's right. I asked Alistair Donald, who's with the International Racing Bureau, the company that handles all the travel and quarantine arrangements, what were the European trainers asking about Del Mar, since this is the first Breeders' Cup here?
Basically about how tight this track was, and I mean, they knew about the weather conditions and what they could sort of expect, and in fact, you know, it's been slightly cooler here than maybe people anticipated. That's probably been good for the Europeans, but it was mainly about the track and the tightness of the turns and how it compared with Santa Anita, because Santa Anita has been a happy hunting ground.
One of the European horses that's sent over by Aidan O'Brien is Churchill. He's a really talented horse in Europe at a mile on turf. Well, he's put him in the Classic, a mile and a quarter on dirt. I don't understand it. He's a toss-out for me.
Yeah, the record for the Europeans in the Classic is not good. But speaking of the Classic, let's start with Dale Romans. He does not have a dog in the fight, but he always has an opinion, so I asked him his opinion about the race.
I would say if I was playing one horse all weekend, I'd play Arrogate. You give Bob Baffert that much time to prepare, he'll figure out. I think he's the best horse, what he's done all year, and it's a tough field, but I would be betting Baffert with the game plan time.
Well, do you agree with Dale Romans?
No, I don't. I just think there are too many questions about whether Arrogate's back to his old self. The last 2 races weren't very impressive. And if he is back to his old self, he'll probably win, but I'm going to play against him. And the horse I'm going to use is actually one of the other Baffert horses, and it's a 3-year-old, just like Arrogate was last year when he won the Classic, West Coast. I think he looks like a beast, and I think he's going to win.
A 3-year-old like Arrogate was last year, like American Pharaoh was the year before, and Bayern was the year before. This could be Baffert's 4th consecutive Breeders' Cup Classic with a 3-year-old. Just phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
I'm on the West Coast train too. I think he's going to win it.
All right, so how about the Distaff?
Well, John Sadler, we talked about earlier this week, is 0 for 39 in the Breeders' Cup. Stellar Wind has lost the last 2 Distaffs with terrible luck. This is a talented mare. I think she's finally going to get the job done and give him a Breeders' Cup win.
Okay, well, I have a different horse in mind, and that is also a 3-year-old. Her name is Elate, and she is trained by Bill Mott, who has won the Breeders' Cup Distaff 5 times. He's going to make it 6 on this Championship Friday. What do you think? Take the poll on our website and let us know who you think is going to win the Breeders' Cup Distaff. All right, that's going to do it for this World Championships edition of the Friday Show presented by Cal Racing Cares. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.